Good evening, students. My name is Miss Gutierrez, and the title of today's lesson is called More Like Me. So we're going to begin by playing a game called Who's My Parent? So take a few seconds to look at the picture on the left. Using your best judgment, pick out the baby's parent. Hillary, can you tell me who the parent is?
The top right hand, the dog,
And why did you choose the dog?
because that's a puppy and puppies come from dogs.
Yeah, good job. It is the Labrador. Alright, round 2. Take a look at the picture. And who is the parent? Shauna.
The flower. Oh, I'm sorry, the blue one.
Yeah, you're right. Have you seen these blue bonnets before?
Yeah.
Where do you see them?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah, I see them driving down interstate, across the school from here. Okay, round 3. Take a look at the picture. Who's the parent? Hillary?
The bottom picture of the, I don't know if it's a cheetah or it's a cheetahs.
Yeah, it's a cheetah. Good job. It's a cheetah. Okay, so for the last round, take a look at the picture on the left. Who is the parent? May.
The eagle?
Eagle. Why'd you choose the eagle?
Well, it's the only bird there.
Yeah.
And it's a good bird.
You're right, it's the eagle. So, in the activity, you had to identify baby's parent by its characteristic. What is another word for a parent's or plant's child? This word is used in the scientific community. You may have heard it in previous lessons. If you don't know, just use your best judgment, throw out a word out there. Nothing is wrong. Yes, though.
Offspring.
Offspring, yeah, you're right, offspring. So child is the offspring or new organism produced by one or more parents. So I don't have a word wall, but I'm gonna stick it up here. Offspring. Write this down on your form. You don't have that yet. That's okay, because I'm gonna pass it out. Write this down on your formal definition on your exploration note, please.
Totally passed it. Oh, totally passed it.
Alright, so let's move on. Choose a partner who you have not paired up with in a 5E lesson before. So go ahead and do that now. Someone you have not paired up with in a 5E
Sure.
lesson. Alright, ready? Choose one of you. Choose one of you to be the materials manager and maintenance director to pick up the materials baskets.
You go and shoot. So, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Alright, so you win. You get to pick one. I was just gonna say, you get to pick.
The other person will be the primary investigator and the recorder. So in the materials box, you should have a bowl of beans, 1 spoon, 1 knife, 1 fork, 1 chopstick, and or 1 tweezer, 2 empty bowls, and 2 guides. So all of you should have 4 utensils. They're not all going to be the same, but you should have 4 of them.
Yeah.
Oh.
We don't have tweezers.
No, but you're going to say chopstick.
Do we need tweezers? Yeah, we only have one chopstick.
I think
It
that's
says and or tweezers.
4. You're just supposed to have 4. Yeah.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah, we have 4.
Okay.
We have 4.
And then, okay, there's a
Like,
Alright, so before we begin, lab safety, do not throw the beans anywhere to anybody. Do not put beans in mouth, ears, etc. And do not misuse the utensils. Some of these have sharp edges. Please don't use it for other than the exploration. Alright, so remove the materials out of the box, which you have. Set the utensils to the side. Place the bowl of beans in the middle of the table. Make sure to place the bowl of beans in equal distance between each of you. Place the empty bowls in front of you. You will use this to store your beans, so each of you will have an empty bowl. Okay, so close your eyes and pick one of the utensils out of the 4 in front of you.
oh my gosh, no, because I know.
Rock, paper, scissors, who goes first?
There we go. Although this may not be appropriate.
Wait, do I pick it up with my eyes closed?
Yeah, with your eyes closed,
Oh,
hold on.
pick one up.
Okay, go. Okay.
Dang it.
Okay, good. Are you gonna switch them?
Yeah, hold on. Okay, go.
Does everyone have a utensil? Yes, okay, great. So, directions. On a distant planet, there exists a species called bigaloos. They live in an environment that does not change. Each bigaloo is the same species and similar, except they each have a different mouth type. So, bigaloos can have a spoon mouth, just like this, a fork mouth, a chopstick mouth, a knife mouth, or a tweezer mouth, which I don't have, but you know how to use tweezers. I hope. Each of you will play a different type of bigaloo based on the mouth you have, so the one that you chose or picked up right now. You will use one hand to collect the beans and transfer them to the empty bowl in front of you, so just like I showed you, pick up and then transfer. Alright, there will be 3 trials. In each trial, you will have 20 seconds to collect / eat as many beans or food as you can with the mouthpiece you have. The type of bigaloo that collects or eats the most beans will win that trial and reproduce. The bigaloo that collects the least will have died of starvation. Reporter, record your data in the bracket of your exploration sheet. Continue until you have completed all 3 trials and are left with 1 survivor.
You might win.
I will be the timekeeper, so start whenever I say go and stop whenever I say stop. Do you guys have any questions? No? Alright, ready? And
One at a time, correct?
as many as you can, but the only beans that count are the ones that are in the bowl. Also, let's separate the bowls, not too close to each other. Yeah. Ready? And
Did you move that out?
start.
Oh crap. Oh crap.
I have too many, and I'm making a mess.
Alright, stop.
I dropped 3.
I'm the only one that has a chopstick. Record your winner and your loser on your bracket.
Although you won.
I won. I have to count that.
I got
Yeah.
6.
Pharmacy skills count by 5.
Yeah.
I don't know how many.
Actually, let me use the knife for this.
Wait, I have a question. Do we
Yes.
write toothpick or the number? Or
you can write chopstick and the mouth type. Write the mouth type. So if you
Oh,
have
okay,
a fork,
alright. So I don't need a count piece?
no, you don't need to. You can just go by who got the most
Probably
beans.
like
You don't need a count.
So
Just go
you
by
would
who
be
got the most beans.
Alright, so spoon.
so then the fork is gonna move on.
Yeah, the fork. Your survivor when they got the most beans.
So she keeps the fork.
Yes, exactly. So
Fork. So now you
Zoe made a good point, guys. The winner will keep the mouth type, and the loser, the one who died out, will get to pick a new mouth type or pick up a new mouth type. The same way that you did before with your eyes closed.
So now you're
Pick up a
gonna
new
select.
one. Yeah, that one has died out. It is no longer living. So let me know when you are ready for trial 2.
You're like, I know, it's gonna be hard.
There you go.
It's gonna be. I'll start over here. So I have to like.
Yay! If you're ready, hold up your bigaloo. All right. Ready and go.
double the time here.
Yeah.
Screw you, though.
It's working.
Oh my god, do you see everything she's here?
Okay, stop. All right, collect your. Record your data on the bracket.
Okay, spoon 1.
Oh,
That's impressive that you got me.
How many did you get?
Oh, have y'all done the chopstick?
That was with the
Yeah,
chopstick.
yeah,
The
yeah.
chopstick.
I got 6, but I used this part.
Yeah. Using it to your
All right, guys, give me your attention. All right, so at the end of trial 2, who will reproduce? Amanda.
The spoon in our trial.
Okay, great. Does anybody have a different survivor so far? Hillary, you do? The fork. The fork? Okay, great. So let's continue to the last and final trial. Are you guys ready? Okay, ready and
I'll allow it.
go.
Competitor right there.
See? Go everywhere. They're all jumping these. You know, like, try that.
Right now we're really already gonna have to count.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll let you have an extra one. That was not.
All right, stop. Let's see. Record your data in your bracket. Take a few minutes to answer the questions on your exploration guide. Also, take a few minutes to clean up your beans.
Alright, so which type of data is survivors live to reproduce.
It was the knife.
The knife one?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and write them down.
Oh no, I don't know which one's the knife. 125.
See, I told you.
Well, the night is what I spoke, well, no.
You were close though.
This
Very.
Trial 1 and trial 2.
spoon is still the
It
better
didn't look like
variant.
over
I didn't
100.
see
did it?
that.
I was like, oh my god.
Answer the questions on your explanation guide.
It was kind of similar like the
Oh yeah.
So there was both listeners, like at least one that could succeed and one that couldn't succeed. So one was good and one was bad. The tweezers, right?
And then we're playing.
Put your pencils down when you're done, so I know that I can continue.
Usually we're using pens.
Or pins.
Sorry. It's kind of long. Should I get extra? I know. I'm very tired. My legs hurt. Oh, my boyfriend did all the heavy stuff. Do you guys do anything special? Like it? No. Red or white? I really like Australia. Oh wait, you're from Australia. You would know. It's like, I think some of my favorite artists. Like, I think there's some good videos. Because they're near and only from this one region of France. I get really, really upset when I break out. So I can't.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Yes? Alright, so let's go over these questions on your explanation. What type of bigaloo collected the least amount of beans? Amanda.
For us, it was the chopstick.
Okay. Was it different for anybody else?
For
Yes,
us,
Lily?
it was the tweezers.
The tweezers? Okay. So, the chopstick mouth and the tweezer mouth, yes, collected the least amount of beans. What happened to that type of bigaloo? Zoe.
It died by starvation.
Right, good job. So if you haven't done so already, please record this down on number 1 and number 2 on your explanation guide. What type of bigaloo collected the most beans in your trials and why? Crystal.
It was the beef fork because it collected the most beans.
Okay, great. Does anybody have a different answer? Shauna?
We got the spoon collected the most.
Okay, the spoon. May, you had a different answer? Okay, awesome. So the spoon mouth and the fork mouth bigaloos, and it was because their mouth type made it easier to collect that type of food. So it was harder for the chopstick and the tweezers to collect that type of food, maybe because its mouth or its mouth type wasn't able to collect that specific food. So please record this down on number 3 on your explanation guide if you haven't done so already. So what happens to the survivors after the rest of the bigaloos die?
They moved on to the next round.
Okay, they did. In that environment, like in a real life situation or environment, what do you think would happen after that?
To the survivors,
Yes.
I mean, they would have more to eat. They would reproduce.
Reproduce? Great. Yeah, they reproduce, so that type of bigaloo thrived in that environment, and they reproduced more organisms. They reproduced and made more organisms like themselves. So hold up your survivors. Yeah, hold up your survivors. So for every survivor you have, I'm going to give you 2. they reproduce, and that's their offspring. So two for the spoon, and two for the fork. So if you can, lay it out in the middle of the table for everyone to see. Guys, lay out your utensils or your bigaloos in the middle of the table for everyone. Yeah, for everyone to see.
Oh, just the spoons.
So, what comparison can you make about the variation of organisms in trial 1 compared to trial 3, or at the end of trial 3?
Oh, they're all the same.
Oh, I think I get this question.
Yes, Amanda.
Okay, so in trial 1, we had, you had 4 different types, right? You had the spoon, the fork, the chopstick, and the tweezers.
Right.
And then in trial 3, you only had 2 variations.
Right. So you saw more of the spoon mouth at the end of
Right.
trial 3, and some of the fork mouth. So you, at the beginning, like Amanda said, at the beginning there was more variation. There was, I think, in total 5 different types, 4 different types for each group. At the end, now, if you look at everyone's survivor and their offspring, there's only 2. There's only 2 types of bigaloos, so there's less variation now than there was at the beginning. So, does this make them a perfect organism?
No. Maybe.
Make?
No.
And why do you think so? Or why do you not think so?
Because they have what it had, and it wasn't to survive in that environment. But if something changes, then it's another organism that comes along.
Exactly, perfect. So this type of organism thrived in that environment, but it does not make it immune to, like may say, change of environment, or maybe diseases or any predator that can come in and decrease those chances of survival. So if you haven't done so, please record this on number 4 and number 5 of your explanation guide. So we know that the spoon mouths reproduce more organisms like themselves, passing on the characteristic that ensured their survival. So characteristic like in the bigaloos would be their mouth types, right? So the spoon, the knife, the fork, the tweezers. So another word for characteristic used in the science community would be trait. So I'm going to add this to our word wall. So trait is a distinguishing quality or characteristic, typically one belonging to an organism. So take a few seconds to record this down on your defined portion of your explanation guide. Yes.
What's the difference between a trait and an adaptation?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Let me think about it and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Alright, so I'm going to introduce some vocabulary words that are important for this lesson. So inherit is gain a quality or characteristic genetically from one's parent or ancestors. I'm going to add this to our word wall. Please write it down on your explanation guide. Put your pencils down whenever you're done, or your pens.
That was a joke.
Yes, sir. And it was, some students needed to catch up. generation, all of the offspring that are at the same stage of descent from a common ancestor. Put this up in the word wall. So for example, your great-grandma, your grandma, your mom, and yourself, each one of you represents a generation. Heredity is the passing on of a physical or mental characteristic from one generation to another. So just like you saw in your exploration, the passing on of the mouth type from the parent to the offspring, that is heredity. Yes.
So, when you're talking about inheriting traits,
Mhm.
that's heredity. Heredity.
The passing of a physical or mental characteristic from one, yes,
Okay.
that is true. Alright, so please record this on your explanation guide. So to tie it all together, heredity is the passing on of a trait, a physical or mental characteristic, like in your exploration, from one generation to another. The offspring is said to inherit that trait from the parent or ancestor and can pass on the same trait to the next generation. So, in my case, for example, my grandma passed down my curly hair to my mom, and she passed that trait down to me. So that would be heredity, the passing on of a trait from one generation to the next generation. Yes, ma'am.
Can you give an example of a mental characteristic you passed down?
We will get into that a little later in the lesson. So, inheritable traits. Inheritable traits are characteristics that can be passed down from the parent's genetic information, such as the bird's beaks and their shape and their sizes, the color of their feathers, the shape and size of their feet. That can be passed down. That's an inheritable trait. In plants, the color can be passed down, the leaf shape and size can be passed down, leaf margins can be passed down, and diseases can be passed down. So, for example, diabetes runs in my family. So, risk factors could have been possibly passed down to me, making me more susceptible to diabetes. So I have to be careful with how much I eat or what I eat and how much I eat and what I drink and so on. Non-inheritable traits are learned behaviors that cannot be passed down, such as table manners, dress style choice, or liking a certain sport. For example, my dad loves softball, and he has learned to love and play softball. I, however, do not like softball, and I never liked softball. So that learned behavior is not an inheritable trait. It was not passed down. Just because your parent or ancestor enjoys a different certain kind of style or certain kind of sport doesn't mean that you're gonna inherit, or if you are not gonna inherit that type of learned behavior. Can anyone give me one example of an inheritable trait and non-inheritable trait? Crystal?
Inherent
inheritable trait could be the color of your hair, and a non-inheritable trait could be like something that your family does, like their business or something that they enjoy to do, like
Yeah, good job.
carpentry or something.
Those are great examples. Does anybody else want to share examples of a inheritable and non-inheritable trait? Amanda?
So like rolling the direction you can roll your tongue.
Yeah.
An inheritable trait.
Yeah, that's a good one. What is a non-inheritable?
Non-inheritable. Fair use sports. Politics. Yeah. I'm the weird liberal in my family. They're all Republicans.
All right, awesome. Those are great
Thanks.
examples.
Thanks, that was a good.
All right, so turn to the elaboration guide and take a few minutes to answer the questions. Put your pencils down when you're finished. All right. So, what variation do you see in picture 1? Shauna.
Long neck, short neck.
Yeah, you're right. Long neck, short neck. What giraffe is better suited for this environment and why? May?
Long neck, because the long neck giraffe can reach the leaves on the tall trees.
Yes, exactly. The long neck giraffe can reach the leaves on the tree. In your own words, describe what you see in picture 2. So, does anybody want to volunteer and tell me what they wrote down for that question? Crystal?
Question 3, right?
Yes.
The long neck was better suited for the tall tree environment, so we see that type reproducing in the next generation.
Perfect. So, exactly what Crystal said. That long neck thrived in that environment because it was able to reach the leaves on the trees and it reproduced more offspring to create more organisms like themselves. And that's what you see in picture 2. So, go ahead and put your notes away. And I'm going to pass out your evaluation sheet.